Hello all, another walk home, beautiful day today. So I thought I would do another video talking about Irish neutrality. Now I'm going to split this video up into a couple of parts because it is a big subject here, very topical at the moment, and it is something that is being very heavily discussed amongst a lot of Irish people. So this will be just the first one, talking about the origins of Irish neutrality, where it comes out of, and what type of neutrality we actually have. So in Ireland, we are considered a neutral country. This is part of our political network, the makeup. It is not written into the constitution, so to speak, but it is an ongoing policy of Irish governments that we try to keep the Irish state out of international wars. This the idea of this goes back to the First World War, where the idea of conscription into the British Army, as we were part of the British Empire at the time, was a big motivation against being part of the United Kingdom. And so a lot of people kind of got the idea in their heads at that point that should we become our own country, neutrality might actually be the way to go. The second part of it, however, and how this really came about, was that when we did become our own state in 1922, we didn't immediately go for neutrality. Neutrality really came into Ireland in the 1930s, when the rise of fascism in Europe became something that was, for anybody who was paying attention, was going to lead to some sort of war. So the Irish state had three options. Option number one was join the Allies and fight against the Nazis when the war did break out in 1939. This was not a very good option because a lot of Irish people were still quite bitter after the War of Independence and the 1916 rebellion, and even the Civil War, which took place after the War of Independence, was largely blamed on British interference in Irish politics. That, coupled with the fact that we had a lot of economic hiccups between the Irish Republic, or well, it was the Irish Free State at the time, and the United Kingdom in the 1920s and 30s, made Irish people feel that we would be just used as cannon fodder if we were to join an Allied effort. So, to prevent there being civil disruption in Ireland, aka another civil war, the Irish government at the time disregarded that idea. Now, the second option would be to join the fascists, and that was completely out. It was very clear early on that fascism was not going to take root in Ireland. We did have our own fascist group called the Blue Shirts, but because we were a heavily Catholic country at the time, and because workers' rights and the left-wing movements were an exceptionally strong part of our independence movement, it was decided, most Irish people were aghast at what was going on in the continent with regards to Mussolini's fascists and Hitler's Nazis. So particularly the run-up to how they gained power with political assassinations and violence on the streets. So this turned a lot of people off the fascist idea. In fact, more than a lot, the vast majority of people. So that was out. So the last option was neutrality, which seemed to be the best route to go. We were beside a state that was fairly affable to ourselves, the United Kingdom. Despite our differences, we still were getting on. And besides the fact that we had hiccups down through the years, there was very little appetite in the UK for invading and taking over Ireland at the time, especially as they were criticising the Germans for doing the same. And on the other side of us was the United States, which were a neutral state, so if they are neutral, we decide to stay neutral. Now, whether this was a good or bad idea, in the end, is up to debate. It's a debate that still takes place in Ireland today, whether we should have joined at a certain point, maybe when the United States joined, or whether we should have or whether staying out of it was the better option. We decided to stay out of it in the whole. And despite the fact that there was criticism of Eamon de Valera for giving condolences to the German ambassador to Ireland during the when Hitler died, which is something that left a very bitter taste in the mouth of most Irish people. The Irish government and the Irish people as a whole were pretty much pro-Allied. We provided economic help, particularly in the form of food and such, to the United Kingdom. We provided soldiers as Irish volunteers. Thousands of them went to fight in the British and American armies. And in Northern Ireland, of course, they were directly involved. When Belfast was bombed, we provided medical and fire brigade services to go to Belfast to help out with the fires that took place there due to the bombing. The neutrality did leave lasting effect in Ireland. It put us on the outside of the economic rebuilding of Europe through the Marshall Plan. As we were not involved in the war, we could not gain access to any of the funds that were available by the Marshall Plan. It also left a lot of countries in Europe very upset with us, particularly France, as they felt that they were abandoned by the Irish and their hour of need. And it caused an even further divide between those in what would later become the Republic of Ireland and those in Northern Ireland. A divide which was only widened when the Republic was declared a few years after the war came to an end. All of these points are debated and hashed out amongst Irish people even to today, and whether or not this was a good idea. But whatever the case, neutrality did become a major part of who we are and a major part of our political sense. Our neutrality today is very much similar to the neutrality that we held during World War II. As one of our Taoiseachs put it recently, we might be neutral militarily, but we're not neutral morally. We do try to help out as much as we can in a situation where we feel one side is being bullied or attacked aggressively and without provocation from another side. This means that Irish people are quite outspoken when it comes to things like Ukraine and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, being very pro-Ukrainian, with Ukrainian flags being seen all across Dublin even up to today. And with regards to Palestine, which we see as being bullied by the Israelis. And I have done a video with regards to Irish-Israeli relations, so you can have a look at that if you want to see my thoughts on that. But nevertheless, neutrality is a central part of who we are. And despite the fact that there is many issues going on in the world today which are leading Irish people to debate this neutrality, it is still a core issue and something that we're not likely to give up very easily or in the near future. So that's the origin of the Irish neutrality position. And in my next couple of videos I will be looking at whether or not it is viable in our world today to take this stance, what needs to be done within the Irish Armed Forces and such, and how we feel about international criticism of our neutral stance. Anyway, that's the first one. Take care.